communication. So let that be said, be it clear to everybody that when a supervisor or a school head or a master teacher will go to your classroom and or into your online classroom and look at how you teach, it is always for the aim of improving your performance. And I hope that even as to those who give feedback, just like the department heads, just like the master teachers, will always do it for that. No? Hindi siya point against the teacher. Kaya nga tayo merong star observation, meron tayong outline for observation. Ang tawag natin dyan, di ba, clinical supervision. So, feedback is important for those clinical supervision. So, pagka merong hindi kaya, di mentor with all of these things. Okay? So, ayan. So, feedback is used to enable improvement in students' learning and performance. So, it's important to understand that feedbacks are not grades. Okay? Feedbacks are not assessments and they are not evaluation tools. Okay? So, how do we implement a performance feedback system? So, nag-ano pa lang ako ng mga, naghahawan pa lang tayo ng mga difficulties. Alright, so, eto na, question, kasi yung title is Implementing a Performance Feedback System. How do you really implement a performance feedback system? Okay? Definitely, ilayo natin yung isip natin na pag nag-feedback tayo, nag-grade tayo. Tatanggalin natin yon. So, what's the first step in a feedback system? Number one is to define the expectations. You have to identify the key role or role outputs, identify the outputs, the results, the accomplishments, the valued outcomes, the thinking behavior, no? The content, okay, that must be shown in a performance. Okay? The documents, the decisions, the designs, the materials to be used, lahat yan part yan ng performance system. So, ano yung expectation? We have to be clear on that. And that is the starting point for any effective performance feedback system. That's the first line of entry. So, parang yan yung kapag ka sa race, that is your starting point. Andyan lahat. So, everybody gets the same information about the expectations. Anong tawag natin dyan? Objectives. What are your objectives? So, when you do the lesson plan and when you do the modules, you, I hope the module is different, but for our lesson plan and our learning plan, ang expectations, ang salita natin dyan, objectives. That is your objective as a teacher, to make your students understand the knowledge, show the behavioral skills or the cognitive skills and the attitudes and values. Ano nga yung tawag natin doon? CASH, di ba? Cognitive activities, cognitive content, attitude, skills, and habits. So, yung CASH. Okay? So, competency lahat yun, no? Pag pinagsama-sama mo lahat yun, competence. So, anong expectations? And the students should have a time to identify the role outputs from the first day of the class. From the first week of the class, dapat malinaw sa kanila, pagkatapos ng week na to, pagkatapos ng grading na ito dapat yung ma-accomplish ko. Ito dapat yung goal ko. That's why setting a goal is important for students. Ito dapat yung maging outcome ko. Ang tawag namin dyan sa Philippine Normal University ay program outcomes. Anong klaseng teacher yung ipoproduce namin? First year pa lang, pagpasok niya, first week, lahat ng activities niya towards the orientation of all the expectations na after 4 years, eto ka dapat top-notcher ka ng LET, dapat makapasa lahat, dapat magaling kang teacher, dapat magaling ka sa technology, lahat yan, no? At lahat ng ginagawa sa learning system will contribute to that. That's why we have program outcomes, we have the mission and vision, lahat yung magkakakawing-kawing yun. Kasi andun lahat yung results, andun yung accomplishments, documents, decisions, designs, materials, and that's the starting point. That's where you have to do it. And if you fail to do that, pagbalikan mo yung mga ginawa na, ako babalikan ko yung mga ginawa ko as a teacher um, 25 years ago. There were times that I failed to give the expectations to my students. Many times, we don't give them the information of what should be their performance after. Basta lang nagbigay lang tayo, o ito ang magiging test ninyo, o ito ang performance output na yun. And so they do things without a goal. They do things without reasons. They perform things that is not relevant to them. So in that case, I may not have been a very relevant teacher for the times that I don't let my students identify or I guide them to identify the key job or role outputs or identify the outputs and the expectations. It's important. Okay, number 2. Yan. Saan nanggagaling yung mga yan? Yung mga standards, skills, content, no? Cognitive content, skills yung cash, no? Cognitive content, cognitive processes, skills, attitude, and habits. Nandun yan lahat sa ating CG o sa ngayon, MELCS, no? Most Essential Learning Competencies. Tawag natin dyan standards. Ang dami nga nating standards. Pag tinignan mo yung CG, meron tayong exit standards. So pagkatas ng grade 3, meron yan. Pagkatas ng grade 6, meron yan. Pagkatas ng grade 10, meron yan. Pagkatas ng grade 12, meron yan. At lahat yun contributory to our students being a good citizen and a good person. No, I hope binabasa natin yan, no? At yung vision ng Marikina, kasama yan. Yung mission and vision ng eskwelahan, kasama din yan. So, ang dami nating kailangang malaman. At paano ba talaga pagsasama-samahin yung lahat ng yan? And a good teacher will see the connection of all these things, no? Idagdag pa natin 21st century skills, idagdag pa natin yung mga ini-exam sa CPLMP, sa all these standards, all the standards that you can have na binibigay sa iyo at mga ini-introduce sa iyo like being gender fair, ang dami. Those are critical requirements for each output. Saan nakikita sa output na yun, no? Yeah. Okay, so next is to have the rubrics. It's the definition how the requirement will be measured. So, kung gusto mo may performance ka, kailangan alam nila yung rubric. Yung judgment, yung grade will be in accordance to the rubric that you gave them. So, that's an evaluation, di ba? Output-based criterion. Ang tawag natin dyan, rating scales, criterion, reference, performances. Okay? Yes, feedbacks are not grades, but eventually, they'll be graded according to the rubrics. That's why the rubrics are important. Kaya nga tayo, di ba, sa understanding by design, inuuna natin yung outcome. Ano yung outcome? What are the expectations? And then, susunod niyan, yung assessment. Ano ang assessment type na gagawin? At yan ang tinatawag natin outcomes-based education. At nandyan na tayo ngayon. Outcomes-based education na tayo ngayon. Diba? So, we define how these are measured. And it's part of the performance system. Nung sasabihin mo, eto yung rubric. At yung rubric, mga kapatid, hindi yan pabago-bago. Kung ano yung binigay mo sa umpisa, hanggang dulo yun na yun. Kasi dyan sila nag-work on eh. Kaya ako, I would rather suggest that you use the very detailed, holistic rubrics in grading the performance. Okay? Kung gano'ng ka-detailed ang IPCR ninyo, dapat gano'ng ka-detailed ang rubric ng mga bata sa kanilang performance. Ang bongga na mag-iisip ako, paano ba itong gagawin itong mga ganong klase ng situations, 'di ba? So, those things, okay? So, they will be graded eventually to their output, but that is a very long way. You are in the starting point and they should know it. Ang hirap kasi pag hindi alam ng mga estudyante how they will be graded. No? Nagbigay na ako ng example dito eh. Ang sabi ng teacher, sige gumawa kayo ng series. Bahala na kayo. Pagdating dun sa grading, di isang period, isang grading period. So yung mga estudyante nag-research, nag-innovate, ay hindi kami gagamit ng mga metal kasi pwedeng makakuryente, plastic yung ginamit. Pagdating dun sa dulo, bagsak, 75. O bakit ganito, bakit ganyan? Eh kung pwede lang akong magsabi, but I'm a parent, pero kung pwede ko lang sabihin dun sa teacher na, binigyan mo ba ng rubric ng mga yan? Sinabi mo lang gumawa. Tapos ngayon, at the end of the day, at the end and reckoning day, sasabihin mo mali yan. Asa ng rubric? Okay? So kung ang mga estudyante natin ay kasing empower ng estudyante sa ibang bansa, in Europe, in America, kawawa tayong teachers kapag hindi natin to ginawa. It can be. We can go back. We can go to that time na pwede tayong mareklamo dahil dito sa mga lapses na ito. So, ingatan natin yung sarili natin, no? Ingatan natin. And this is the right thing to do. Hindi dahil natatakot kang matanggal, but you do it because this is the right thing. Okay? This is the right thing. This is the morally right action that a teacher should do. So, rubric. Rubrics defined as the target goal for each measure category. So, this is an example of a rubric in a simple research, no? Introduction, so 4, 3, 2, 1 ang scoring, pwede nga outstanding, o excellent, very good, good, needs improvement. Conclusions, information gathering, summary paragraph, grammar, and spelling. So, andyan lahat yung mga criteria na yan. At binibigay natin yan at the beginning of the module or at the beginning of the quarter or at the beginning of a lesson. Okay? So next, magpapa-performance ka, magpapagawa ka. Hindi pwedeng hindi mo kinommunicate yung model. Anong itsura? Yung walang idea yung mga tao kung anong gagawin. Anong itsura ng good teaching? Kaya nga sabi natin, oy, supervisor, sorry sasabihin ko to. I-model mo yung klase ng performance na hinahanap mo sa mga teachers. Kung gusto mo magaling sila magturo, ma'am, paano magturo? Ganito, magturo nito. Yan. That's why we role model. Okay? Sa mga estudyante, tayong teachers ang role model. So we communicate to our students the purpose of the assessment and the feedback. We demonstrate to them what we are looking for by giving them an example of what an excellent sample to. What an excellent paper looks like, no? Dapat nga iniisa-isa pa. Ito yung paper na hinahanap natin. Ano ang maganda dito? Find the qualities. Ginagawa namin yan sa PNU eh. And provide also the contrast of what our needs improvement paper looks like. If it's a research paper in English or if it is an essay in English, no? Example lang yan. Or if it is a prototype, ito yung prototype ng ito gusto ko to sa HE eh. Pinapakita ng teacher kung anong itsura at ano ang lasa ng pagkain na lulutuin nila, halimbawa ng sinigang, bago ipaluto ito. Kaya yung mga teachers natin sa HE, sa food service, talagang hanga ako sa kanila. Sila muna yung magluluto, ipapatikim sa mga bata. Pagkatapos nun yung mga bata naman, that is an excellent process. We model the performance, we give the prototype, and we give them at the beginning of the performance. No? Umpisa pa lang ito yung itsura nito. Okay? So, that's part of the feedback. No? That's part of the feedback mechanism. Ibigay mo muna ano itsura. Hindi yung naghahanap sila sa internet tapos hindi naman pala yun yung hinahanap mo. Hindi naman pala yun yung gusto mo. Okay, we have to be clear on this. Otherwise, yeah, we lose our relevance. Okay, so, after all of these things, di gumagawa na sila, tandaan, ang performance evaluation ay sa dulo, pero hindi nangangahulugan na sa dulo yan gagawin, no? Na magka-cram sila sa dulo. Kasi dapat yan, their performance against the target over time. Lahat ng ginagawa mo sa klase, week by week, contributory to what they will be doing at the end of the quarter. Okay? Ibig sabihin ko kung sa math, first lesson ay kinder tayo. First lesson ay about colors. Next, shapes. Next, 1 to 10. And then the performance test is how they will count up to 1,000. So lahat ng mga ginawa nila from first week, second week, third week, fourth week, contributory to them being able to count out to 1,000. And how do we give a feedback for that? Well, we can create a visual display. Halimbawa, okay, nga, pwedeng i-graph, oy, ngayon mababa pa yung naging performance mo dito. So ano pa yung dapat gawin? You communicate the trends. Anong trends? Nagbibigay yan ng snapshot ng individual student on how they are performing over time. Okay? Sabihin nyo sa akin at the back of your mind, Ma'am Awi, ang hirap naman yan. Kung meron akong values education tinuturo ko, kung meron akong 10 sections ba? 10 sections. Hindi naman ikaw yung gagawa niyan. Hindi paggawa mo sa kanila yung graph nila kung high school na sila, di ba? Or kung grade 3 to senior high, kaya na nilang i-graph ang sarili nilang performance, di ba? Mamaya ituturo ko rin yon. Okay, students can get a glance snapshot of how they are performing. Okay, so while there's so many charts online to choose from, the best and simplest examples are line graphs. Basta ang mahalaga, na-chart nila yung performance over time. Nakikita nila doon, no? Kung face-to-face yan, exciting, ginagawa ko yan, groups. No, pagpasok nila sa pintuan, doon yung graph ng bawat grupo, kung sino na yung syempre, konting competition. Pero feedback yan, kung sino na yung maraming scores sa mga magkakaklase. So, ang tawag namin doon ay, group performance. So, yon. Kasi may peer mentoring akong pinapagawa sa kanila. So, pagka yung mahina, hindi pa, sasabihin ng estudyanteng magaling, ay, kailangan turuan ko patuwa kasi yung grupo namin, mababa pa yung performance. Saan makikita itong klase ng performance feedback system na ito? Makikita nyo yan sa mga fast food. No? Makikita mo yung feedback systems nila kapag etong grupo na to, or makikita mo yan sa kung sino dito yung sumasali sa or mga nagsa-sideline sa insurance. Yan, those who are what we call financial advisors. Meron niyang visual display ng performance, no? Against the target. Kung target mo 1 million sa ngayong month na to. And then they graph it. So, ganun din yung mga estudyante natin. We want to see how the charts and the line graphs are going up. Okay? And so, with this, we encourage self-monitored performance. When feedback is given to students individually, they can measure their own performance and enable feedback to be immediate. Pag siya yung nag-graph, nagiging immediate yan, hindi pa ako masyadong magaling. I need to work harder. Okay, so just a disclaimer, we do not display individual performance publicly, diba? Individual graphs should be kept privately. So when I was a teacher in high school, their individual graphs are in the back of their notebooks where they can only see it. So, and me, of course. Kasi pag binuksan ko yung notebook nila, makikita ko na, nag-graph nila yung performance nila to the different activities or performance contributory to the final performance, diba? Class or group activities can be displayed publicly. Okay. So, another feedback system is differentiated. It is differentiated. When we say differentiated, it has the potential to create environment that can maximize the success of each student. What do I mean by that? Dahil may differentiated assessment tayo, no? Differentiated output, differentiated din yung feedback system natin. Okay? Anong ibig sabihin nun? So, ang differentiated outputs, nagagaling yan sa mga theoretical bases such as sono-proximal development, and our differentiated feedbacking system should also be in accordance with Sonoproximal development by Vygotsky, the spiraling curriculum by Brunner, the Bloom's taxonomy of adjectives, and the revised Bloom's taxonomy of objectives by Krathwohl and Anderson, and the Solo taxonomy, and then cognitive load theory. All of these theories are very important in designing a feedback system. So, paano ba natin iaayos yung proximity ng development ng isang estudyante? Well, the first theory would say na we need the parents to give their feedback, we need the community, and then for the spiraling of curriculum, it should be developmentally appropriate. And for the Bloom's taxonomy, you have to understand that creation is the highest form of learning. And then for the Solok taxonomy of objectives is that the metacognition is the most important, no, assessment of learning. So paano kaya nila iniisip na nag-iisip sila? And also the cognitive load theory. So all of these things are very important theories that we need to consider in giving feedbacks. Okay, so ano ba yung mga feedback natin? Saan ba natin ma-differentiate yung feedbacking system natin? We can give feedbacks about the content that they have learned. Ano-ano na yung mga content na dapat matutunan? So at the beginning, ito yung mga konseptong dapat nating malaman. Pak. Ito yung mga processes. Sa processes po, nandito po yung problem-solving skills, creativity, all of these things, na yung 4Cs, yung communication, creativity, collaboration, process po yan. Ito ang mga dapat ninyong magawa in terms of problem solving. Pak. Ito naman, ang klase ng produkto na gagawin. Ito ang kailangang ma-produce. Ito ang kailangan environment na maibigay. So, ito yung mga feedbacking systems na pwede natin maibigay sa bata. Dito natin na-differentiate yung ating assessment at the end of the quarter. Okay, we have to remember that. This is important and this is based on the research. You have to remember, teachers, we have to remember that 50% of the variance observed in students' outcome is due to themselves. We only contribute as teachers 30% of their learning. And if we have this kind of information, we make our students more accountable of their own learning. And if we do that, meron kang 30%, 50% nasa bata, passing na yan, 80% na yan eh. And the school environment and other factors such as family only contribute 20%. Kaya makikita mo yung differences, di ba? Yung mga estudyante, mahirap naman. I have a student, a former student, now the director of Asian Studies at UP Diliman. Alam nyo na estudyante ko siya, dinadalaw ko siya sa bahay. Ang bahay nila nasa ang ilalim ay ilog na maraming basura sa Taguig. Palagi kami pumupunta sa contest. Kailangan ko siyang bilan ng uniform. At one time, my very first swatch, kailangan niya ng relo. Sabi ko, gamitin mo tong relo ko. Very resilient. Alam mo, nawala yung relo. Hindi ko alam kung nahulog sa ilog o naibenta. Siyempre, baka may pangangailangan nun. Pero sabi ko, sige lang. Kailangan lang maging magalang ka. She became the valedictorian of their class, went to Philippine Normal University and studied history, and then went to Japan for a master's scholarship and PhD, and went back to the Philippines to become the director of Asian Studies. And you know, they were very poor. The family is so poor. Yung putis niya, palagi may sugat. Hindi malinis ang uniform. But you know, 50% came from her, the resilience. Yung sipag mag-aral. I only contributed 30% of that. Inspiring her, going to their place, tutoring her, mentoring her. Okay? Kapag bago yan, alam ko lahat kayo, meron kayong ganyang kwento. Pagkabago yan mag-contest, patutulugin ko yan sa bahay namin para hindi ko siya susunduin sa bahay nila. So, yung mga ganong klase ng contribution natin sa ating estudyante. And I'm very proud of her. After 20 years, she went back to me and gave me a swatch watch. Sabi niya, Ma'am, it's time to pay back. Not the exact swatch that I had during that time when I was so young. I was only 21 when I became her teacher. Pero napahiyak ako kasi nakita ko siya na she was accountable of her own learning. All for that 50%. Okay? Kaya lagi nating agam-agam ngayon, ako, modular, self-study, self-paced. Ano kaya mangyayari sa estudyante natin if they are not trained during the pre-COVID to study on their own, to have that kind of metacognitive analysis on their own? Maybe we're losing the 50% of the variance. Okay? And we're not there by their side to give the 20%, the 30%. They only have the 20%. Would you think we'll be successful? That's why feedback now is important. No, it's not the end of the rope. It's not the end of the tunnel. We still believe that we can do something on this. We can reach out to our students and make that 50% of the variance stronger to them. That they understand that the learning is their responsibility and accountability. Okay? Because their beliefs, their perceptions, their self-efficacy, all of them being a person, shape their learning, shape their way of learning. Okay? And all those beliefs and perceptions, the inner voices, are influenced by their ability levels. Okay? Yun yung tinatawag nga nating self-efficacy. So makikita natin ngayon na if they have different ability levels, it can grow through proper feedback, no? And so we differentiate our instructions. So we can decide how to set up groups, how to pace the activities, how to frame and phrase our questions, determine what kind of intervention we will be required to implement, which will be the source of your action research, with timing the assessment, the timing of the assessment, and the level of difficulties. You cannot give the same level of difficulty to one who is very motivated and has a good performance level already, to Pedro, who is at the end of the students' pyramid, who is at the bottom. We cannot give them the same tasks. So that's why we need to profile our students. No? O now, nagde-define pa lang ako dito, no? Ano naman ngayon yung performance task? The performance tasks should show the most essential learning competencies that we have. Diba? What are those? We build on content, knowledge, process skills, work habits, and values, and are strategically placed in the lesson or unit to enhance learning. That's why the performance task pulls it together to show the competency. Bakit ganito yung pagkasulat ng MELCS? Kasi hindi na po yan objective. Competencies na po yan. Pag sinabing competencies, pinagsama-sama mo na, dapat may content, dapat may attitude, cognitive attitude, dapat may process and skills, dapat may habits, cash. Okay? To be strategically placed in the performance task asked by the teacher to show, for the students to show how they will put all of it together to perform such a tasks. No? So performance tasks, they are not add-ons. Hindi ito dagdag. Kaya nga ito pinakamalaking source of grades ng estudyante natin. 50% ang pinakamalaki dito, di ba? At the end of our instruction, there are integral part of the learning situation. They are the opportunity to assess the quality of the student's performance. Okay? Kaya tayo merong performance-based classroom assessment. Okay? So it ranges from short activities that takes only a few minutes to a project culminating or to a polished product for audience inside and outside the classroom or in the community. Diba? The beginning most performance task falls on a short end of the continuum. May mga maliliit kang performance tasks that will contribute how they will do the final performance tasks. There are many activities that will be done to shape the final performance tasks. Okay? So those are important. So what are the considerations? Number one consideration is the amount of time needed for the performance task and the subjectivity traditionally associated with teacher assessment and assigning grades such as rubrics. Okay. Next. Ayan. So example, how we do the performance task and how do we ask performance task? Ako, I would rather suggest that you use this outline, no? Yung mga performance task. Ano ang goal? Ano ang role? Ano ang audience? What is the situation? Ano ang product or performance na gagawin ng bata? And ano ang standards and indicators? Kailan binibigay itong grasps? Sa umpisa ng module, ito yung dapat mong gawin. Di ba kahit naman yung CG natin, nasa simula ang performance outcome. Ano ang tawag natin doon? Performance standards. Right? So, sige, isa-isahin natin. Ano yung goal? It provides the statements of the task. Ano ang problem? Ano ang challenge? Ano ang obstacle? Bakit gagawin yon? So, nandito yung competencies na dapat maipakita sa goal. Okay? So, ano ang role? Ito yung dapat gawin. Ano ang job performance ng estudyante para sa task na ito? Para maabot niya yung goal. Sino yung audience? Sino yung magigrade? Ano ang context ng scenario? No? Example, audience might include a client, a committee, a community, a United Nations organization. So, yun. So, what is the situation? It sets the context of the scenario. So, the situation is you are in the community, all of these things. Now, what is the expected product then? What will they create? Diba? And why will they create it? All right. And so, the standards are the rubrics. So, these are important. Okay? So, most essential learning competencies, when we say student literacy, students learning, performance assessment, and then the pen and paper tests. Okay? Ma'am, nasaan dyan yung tinatawag natin? Itong lahat ng to ay summative evaluations. Saan po dyan ang formative? Meron din kasing formative performances. Okay? Not graded. Yun ang tinatawag natin ngayon na feedback mechanism. Alright. So, ano-ano na ang pwedeng gawing feedback model? Ito yung ating usual na ginagawa. Okay? So, nag-ask ka sa estudyante mo, okay, ito ang graphs, open loop traditional model. The feedback is at the end. Actually, hindi na yung nag-feedback, no? Dito tayo nagbigay ng instruction sa dulo na kapag grade ka na, ibinagsak mo na. Kung hindi man niya nagawa, na ibagsak na. Bagsak. Diba? Ang tawag natin dyan, open loop control system or open loop input, process. Andito, gumawa yung bata, nandito yung graphs. Ito yung lesson mo, nasa input ka, nag-lesson kayo, nagturo ka, gumawa sila, formative, and then gumawa sila, and then ito na yung output. Dito ka nag-feedback sa dulo. Hindi na yan feedback, assessment na yan. Evaluation na yan. Okay? Sino ang kawawa? In the end, yung estudyante, nung nalaman niyang mali na yung mga ginawa niya, nag-gradean na siya. So, anong pang magagawa? Buti may mga ibang teachers, and I commend those teachers na sabihin nila, okay, sige, baguhin mo yan kasi mali-mali yung ginawa na ito, hindi tama yung proseso na ginawa mo, yung output ay hindi ganyan. Sige, ulitin mo. So, yung bata nabigyan ng chance, pero makaka-apekto ba yun sa ating schema, sa teacher, Oo. Ang sasabihin mo, o sige, i-divide ko na lang yung grade mo dito sa unang output sa ikalawang output. Pag dinivide mo yun, kahit maka 100 siya kung 60, pasa siya. Pero, hindi yun ang kanyang outmost performance. Kinulang. 'Di ba? Kinulang tayo dito. Sino dito yung ganito pa rin yung ginagawa hanggang ngayon? Huwag nang magtaas ng kamay. 'Di ba? Pero pwede pa tong mabago. Okay, eto. Ito yung example na gusto natin, ay sorry, tanggalin natin yung traditional model. Hindi yan, di ko na-delete, no? Closed loop. Anong ibig sabihin ng closed loop? Hindi yan yung traditional model. This is the alternative model. This is the alternative model. Babaguhin ko lang kasi ayoko nang. Yan. So, that is the alternative model. Anong ibig sabihin natin dito sa alternative model? Paano natin to pinag-aaralan? So, meron ka ng input, nandyan lahat. Yung targets mo, sinabi mo na lahat, ha? Pati yung graphs. Ngayon, dito sa umpisa, gumagawa sila. Bago makarating sa output, nag-feedback ka dito. So, bumabalik sila dito. Ano yung mga hindi namin naaral? Ano yung kulang doon sa cash? Anong kulang sa cash? Sa cognitive ability, sa content, sa attitude, sa values, sa habits. Ano ang kulang? So, nagkaroon ng error. Balik sa process. Tapos, ano ulit? Balik ulit. Ano ulit? Balik ulit. So, matagal yung proseso. Alam ko sa inyo, ang tagal naman yan. Matagal yan. Pero, pagdating mo sa dulo, lahat ng estudyante mo successful. Masaya ka. And that's what learning is for. Diba? Kaya nga tayo nagtuturo eh. Teachers are not just graders. We are there to make them learn. And you know, the experience dito sa paggawa nito, next time, they will do it right the first time. Sa simula lang to mahirap. Pag sa dulo na, baka isang feedback ka na lang. Okay? Kasi sanay na sila. Lalo na kung yung mga elementary teachers, katulad nyo, nagsimula na dito, pagdating sa high school niyan, sobrang madali na para sa kanila yung paggawa ng kanilang mga performance outputs. Diba? Okay? So the origin of the term feedback is the backward direction of the performance path as opposed to the forward control flow through the system. It is always going back or a step back. They step back, you give them a feedback, they step back. Ano pa yung hindi nagawa? Ano pa yung pwedeng gawin? Paano mai-improve? And that's growth mindset according to Angela Duckworth. Kailangan nagsi-step back sila para makita nila yung loop, no? So that's a closed loop. Kino-close mo doon, bumabalik ka, and it's always iterative. Pag sinabi nating open loop system, it relies on the knowledge of the relationship between the input and the output. Walang calibration. No? Walang calibration. Bahala na yung estudyante mag-calibrate ang sarili niya. Walang teacher intervention. While in the closed loop systems, it operates by measuring the actual value of the output before going to the final output and the information to drive it to required output. So ano pa yung mga information na kailangan so that it will be successful. Okay? So providing feedback provides the opportunities to close the gap between the current and desired performance. Ito yung desired performance mo. Ito yung performance ng bata. Paano siya makakarating doon? So, babalik at babalik siya. Perhaps, pagbalik niya, pagbigay mo ng feedback, eventually makakarating siya at mapapantayan niya. Wala nang masisiro at walang mani-needs improvement doon. And remember, it's not graded. It's something that we do because we are mentors. We are teachers. Okay? So, what's important? We need to we need to be aware of the timeliness of the feedback. Okay? It has been suggested that, according to Race in 2001, if not offered immediately, then a delay of 1 to 2 days is optimum. Ibig sabihin, kailangan pag pinagawa mo ngayon, may feedback na yan. Kahit sa work Pagka yung iyong secretary o iyong SA, sa amin student assistant, binigyan mo ng work, pag hindi ka nag-feedback agad, ibig sabihin okay na yan, 'di ba? Pero hindi pala, pero babaguhin pala. So hangga't maaari ang delay ay 1 to 2 days. According to RACE, ito ay for higher education. So, dapat mabasa mo na yun in 1 to 2 days. Pero, syempre, ako guilty din ako hanggang 1 week eh. Hanggang 1 week. I-scheduling ko yan ng Wednesday. So, hanggang 1 week nakakapag-give kami ng feedback. Now, the work would be submitted, returned with feedback, and hopefully before the next assignment is set para mabago niya. Okay? So, ayan. Another is splitting the assessment into series of smaller tasks so that yung feedbacking mo, nagre-require lang siya ng particular task. Kaya ang tawag natin dyan, feed forward. Itong task na ito, para sa susunod, kailangan mo kasi ito. Ayun naman dapat. Ang tawag natin dyan ay adhering to the spiraling. Okay? Spiraling connection. You feed forward, no? Pag nag-feedback ka dito, ito, kailangan mo to para sa susunod. Parang ano yun, assignment outline muna, first draft, second draft, o yung mga nag-thesis, parang thesis yan. Title muna, sunod sa title. Proposal, sa proposal, methodology, unti-unti hanggang makabuo ka ng isang thesis. Okay, and the use of the draft report submission and marking allows for a measure of corrective actions. Anong mga babaguhin? To improve the performance, which is beneficial to student learning. Mali pala ako dito sa comment na ito. And you know, pag magpapasa kayo ng research sa isang peer-reviewed journal, hindi lang isang beses. Okay, gawin natin sa experience yung mga nagsulat. Diba, ilang beses nagkaroon ng feedbacking, and don't be saddened or don't feel disheartened na bumabalik sa inyo na may corrective action yung inyong module na sinusulat. Kasi beneficial yon para matuto kang maging magaling na manunulat ng module. Okay? So, yung mga students natin will use the comments, will use the feedbacks on the first draft submission to revise and to use the complete and final version. Remember your thesis writing with your advisor? Diba? Kaya, sa totoo lang, yung mga nag-masters dito, very important ang role ng advisor because he is the mentor. When I was in my PhD, doing my PhD back in 2016, napaka-importante ng advisor ko sa akin. Kasi babasahin niya and he makes sure na binabasa niya. He made it sure na binasa niya at nag-comment siya. And I would go to their house. By the way, my advisor is the TEC director at DepEd right now, si Dr. Ran V. Manguera. So, ganun siya dedicated na magbigay. So, isa yan sa mga 30% why you can graduate in your thesis, in your master's. No? Kapag meron kang advisor na very timely magbigay ng feedback sa'yo sa mga draft submissions mo. Okay, so importante yan. Sabi ni Carles, 2006. So sometimes, feedback has to be imposed. Sometimes, kailangan yung feedback mo, ibibigay mo na sa kanila kung paano, lalo na kung hindi nakukuha. Proactively observing and commenting on their progress as they work. Yung ngayon na, yung on-the-spot feedback. Tayo sa mga anak natin, ganyan tayo, di ba? On-the-spot yung feedback. Halimbawa, pinagluluto mo, pinagsasaing mo, pinagluluto mo ng sinigang. On-the-spot, hindi mo yan gagawin, dapat ito yung gawin mo. And it's always iterative. When I say iterative, it's cyclical. It's always, it goes back, no? Kaya, pag nangyari yon, all outputs and performances are at its best. Sino ba yung masaya pag yung mga estudyante mo natuto lahat, tapos perfect lahat yung ginawa nila, tapos i-display mo sa iyong faculty room na ang ganda ng gawa ng mga estudyante ko. Tapos magkakaroon kayo ngayon ng gallery ng kanilang mga performances, diba ikaw din as a teacher will be really elated and proud that your students have made everything, lahat. Okay? So, sandali lang ha, may tumatawag po sa akin. Hello? Fiona? Hello? Pasagot kay Daddy.
Hello?
Alright. So sorry for that. Next, appropriateness of feedback. No? Studies have shown that there's a variety of reasons why students fail to apply feedback effectively or even applying at all. This includes students being unable to read handwritten feedback. Sabi, ano ba itong sinulat ni ma'am dito? Hindi ko naiintindihan. Or using terminology na hindi naman naiintindihan ng estudyante. So, ipiperceive yan ng bata na irrelevant, tapos magiging reluctant yung bata na, ano ba itong sinasabi ni ma'am? Parang wala na, lalo na, di ba? Ano pa yung appropriateness? When, ito, nag-grade tayo ng paper in red, di ba? Lalo na yung mga English teachers. Kapag hindi natin diniscuss, may mahaba ang oras namin na ginugugol sa estudyante at kilalang-kilala namin yung mga estudyante. Bakit? Hindi na namin basta sinusulat yung feedback namin. Kailangan namin i-discuss ito kasi baka hindi maintindihan. And so ngayon, masaya tayo kasi meron tayong online feedbacking. Pwede natin gamitin as a Google Suite na meron kayo, pwede natin gamitin ang kahit ang Word pag binigay sa'yo, pinasa sa'yo sa Word, pwede ka na mag-comment. Ang kailangan mo lang ilagay, di ba? Review, and then you can comment on the side. Pwede na yon. So, pwede na siya in technology at hindi na siya mahihirapan sa aking sulat, doktor. Di ba? Pwede mo na rin ilagay doon yung mga pwede nilang pagkuhanan ng materials. And I hope na sa validation na ginagawa namin with the writers, ganun din yung ginagawa namin nagko-comment kami doon. No? Ako pala hindi kasi pinagsasama-sama ko lahat sa isang file Pero pwedeng sa mismong file, kasi pala PDF yung naibigay sa akin. Sa mismong file, pwede ka na, sa mismong Word file, pwede ka na doon maglagay ng comment. Okay? So this means feedback must be understandable to the student and relevant and timely to the input to the next task. So kailangan sila mismo, alam nila kung paano basahin, naiintindihan nila at kung paano babaguhin yung ating feedback sa kanila. Remember, this is not graded. Hindi siya graded. Okay? So, paano i-apply yung feedback? Ayan. Application methods are how we give your students, learners, an opportunity to apply the content. Yan. So, kailangan yan. This part of the content involves the learners requiring their input or participation somehow. There are many ways to help learners apply learning, such as, simulation, scenario-based, practice exercise, case study, research, games. So, kahit hindi ka pa dumadating doon sa mismong performance task, malalaman mo na kung yung mga skills ay nakikita nila sa pamamagitan ng mga ito. Okay? Bago pa sila gumawa doon. Halimbawa, driving. Bago pa siya mag-drive ng actual car, i-simulate mo siya. Wala naman tayong course na driving and I hope sana magkaroon sa senior high. No. Isa-simulate mo na yun sa bata. Meron tayong video games ng simulation. In fact, pwede ito sa, ano ba yung ginagamit na, na game dati na, sa Wii, yung Wii Fit, meron yan. Okay? Or sa PS na ba ngayon? PS5, no? PlayStation. Merong ganon. So, driving yung sample ko. So, marami pang ibang simulation. Pwede rin na scenario-based experience. So, bago pa nila gawin ang final performance and final output, unti-untiin mo na dito para makita mo na how they apply the content, attitude, skills, and habits or cash. Okay? Pwede nga research, small research, or case study, or games, diba? So, all those things. Now, self-assessment or self-feedback. The students can actually assess themselves, their own performance. And why? Because it enhances their metacognition. It also enables them to do reflective thinking. It also gives them the accountability for learning and self-regulation. Ito yung kailangan natin ngayon. So this is 50%. So kung may self-assessment, kung kaya nilang i-assess ang sarili nila, kaya nilang magbigay ng feedback sa kanilang sarili. Okay? Kayang-kaya nilang i-feedback yung sarili nila. Mas maganda nga sila muna mag-assess eh. Total, binigay mo naman yung rubric, di ba? So, assess mo muna yung sarili mo nga. And it forced them to engage in a reflective practice. No? Reflective siya. Makikita niya yung sarili niyang strength, makikita niya yung most importantly, yung sarili niyang weakness, and they can improve their own work. Bago ka. Diba? Itong tawag natin dito is scaffold of growth mindset. Gusto natin yan, no? Para sila self-regulated, diba? Yan yung mga bagay na dapat nilang gawin. So, i-assess nila yung kanilang sariling performance. Okay, so how do they assess? Pwede kang magpagawa sa mga estudyante. Ngayon, pwede mong gawin to habang di mo sila nakikita. And this activity is very timely right now. Kasi hindi natin sila nakikita to give initial feedback or to give instant feedback sa kanila, no? Imposed feedback. Pagawain natin sila ng performance journal. Okay? The fastest and most frequent feedback available is the one provided by students to themselves, moment to moment, as they study or write their assignments, contributing to the final performance. So they will invest effort in developing such self-supervision and may be the most cost-effective use of your time. Diba? Kasi ang dami eh. O ESP teacher, ang dami-dami mong hawak, 10 sections. Mas madali ito, diba? Journal ka ng sarili sa kanila para babasahin mo na lang. Ma'am, paano ngayon yan? Di namin maipapasa kasi delikado. Online journal, diba? Online journal. Kahit na, alam nyo, sa Facebook, meron yung tinatawag na notes. Kahit sa notes ilagay. At yung notes na yon pwede yung private. Tapos, pwedeng ikaw lang ang bigyan ng bata ng access para doon, para mabasa mo. Okay? Ang tawag doon, Facebook Notes. Okay, so, pwede ka rin magbigay, so self-assessment, pwede kang magbigay sa kanila ng self-generated feedback. Pwede kang mag-prompt ng mga series of yes or no questions, such as, did I complete the assignment? Have I properly referenced it? If it's in English, followed by a question, one way I could improve the presentation of this submission is to, ayan. So, ito yung tinatawag natin na prompt questions for self-generated feedback. You can use it as a form of questionnaire so that they can give feedback to themselves. Okay? So, the questionnaire concluded, it can be concluded by asking the students to state 2 things that they would do to improve their next assignment. So, parang siyang essay, no? Pwedeng journal na free style journal or pwede kang magbigay ng prompt questions. I think this is easier for elementary students. Okay? So, ito naman, sunod na cost-effective. Peer assessment. So, peer review, peer feedbacking. Okay? Kung may peer assessment ka, bago mag-assess yung peer, meron munang peer feedbacking. Sorry pinagsasabay ko yung pagbibigay ng dalawa kasi you cannot give feedback without assessment naman. But feedback is not assessment. So, meron kang mag-peer assessment pero bago sila mag-assess, kailangan mag-feedback muna sila. Dapat may peer review. Ayan. So, yung mga estudyante, they will be able to critique and provide feedback to each other on their work. It helps them to develop the lifelong skills in assessing and providing feedback to others in a nice way. It also equips them with the skills to assess their own and seek improvement. So, habang nag-assess sila ng iba, nakikita nila, ay maganda to. Huwag kayong matakot na naggagayahan sila. Anyway, this is performance. Hindi naman to written test. 'Di ba? Kung matakot na, ay nagagayahan, okay lang yun. Basta maganda yung nakita nila, they can improve. And as we say, 'di ba, ang sabi natin, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Basta yung tama ang ginaya nila. At nakikita na mali sila doon. So magpi-feedbacking sila. And you know, this is the best example of collaboration in the class. 'Di ba? Pangalawa, hindi ka pagod. Tayo-tayo lang naman to, teachers lang naman tayo. Huwag naman tayo magpapakapagod, di ba? So, titingnan na natin. At in the end, hindi ka na masyadong pagod kasi meron ka ng individual feedback, peer feedback, tapos teacher's feedback. 30% na lang yun sa'yo. Anyway, 50% kanila yan. Di ba? So, mapofocus mo na yung iyong mga feedback sa pamamagitan nun. Pero, nandito ka sa peer assessment and peer feedbacking. Dapat nandiyan ka, dapat nakikita mo. Ito yung sekreto ng mga teachers na magagaling. Ba't ka nang mapakapagod? Diba? Siyempre, titignan mo yung paano ka maaalwanan yung trabaho. And this is what we call efficiency. Hindi ang katamaran na pinapagawa mo yung mga estudyante mag-peer review. Okay lang yon at mag-peer feedback. But remember, we have to give them the skills to develop the skills of assessing each other and providing good feedback so that there will be no conflicts among them. So, paano ba magbigay ng tamang feedback? What is to, sa umpisa mahirapan ka dyan na ituro sa kanila yan, pero pag sanay na sila, madali na yan. And it can be done even with grade 2 students. And I've seen teachers who have, sa Poveda, nakita ko na to. Sa school? Maria Montessori, nakita ko na to. No? Sa De La Salle pa, nakita ko na to. Sa capstone project nila, meron silang peer feedback and peer assessment. So, kayang gawin ito ng grade 2, grade 2 hanggang senior high. Okay? Next, why use peer assessment? Na-empower students to take responsibility for and manage their own learning. Okay? Sinabi ko na yan kanina. 50% is on their own. Number 2, to enable students to learn to assess and give constructive feedback and to develop lifelong assessment skills. We assess all throughout our life. Kakain tayo sa labas, we assess and give feedback. Bibili tayo ng damit, we assess and give feedback, di ba? Okay. What else? May I drink water? Enhance students' learning through knowledge diffusion and exchange of ideas. Yung matuto silang makinig sa iba. And these are all collaborative. These are all 21st century skills. Next, we motivate students to engage with course materials more deeply. Siyempre, nakikita mo, yung rubric is a material that you give to your students. So, yun din, di ba? Nag-i-engage sila doon. Ano pa yung nag-i-engage sila? Yung mga dinadagdag mong additional materials for them to read so that they can improve their work. So, nag-i-engage sila doon. So, when we use peer feedback, consider how to let the students know the rationale for doing peer review. Ito yung mga dapat mo i-prepare beforehand. Explain the expectations, dapat lahat naman sila alam yan. And benefits of engaging in a peer review process and feedbacking. Next, consider having students evaluate anonymous assignments. So, para mas objective, pag individual, anonymous by numbers. So, pwede mong i-test yun. Okay? So, anonymous lang. And number 3, you can be prepared to give feedback on students' feedback to each other. So, ikaw naman mag-feedback kung paano sila nag-feedback sa isa't isa. Ang bongga, di ba? And display examples of feedback of varying quality and discuss which kind of feedback is useful and why. So, hindi lang yung mga cash ng subject area mo ang itinuturo mo sa kanila, but you also give them the ability, to give feedback. Ito yung mga example ng magandang feedback quality. Ito naman yung hindi dapat gawin and why it is useful and how to do it. Okay? Consider giving clear directions and time limits for in-class peer review sessions. Okay? And set defined deadlines for out-of-class review assignments. Hindi naman pwedeng the whole time, di ba? So, meron yan time limit. So, calendar is important. And then, you can listen to group feedback discussions and provide guidance and input when necessary. Okay? Student familiarity and ownership of the criteria or the rubric tend to enhance peer review assessment validity. So, involve students in the discussion of the rubrics. Consider involving students in developing the assessment rubric. So, yeah. Okay, you can also ask Sa paggawa ng rubric, sa pagbibigay ng feedback. Yan. You can ask as a teacher or sa parents, no? Pwede kayong mag-ask sa parents, what can the student do? What can't the student do in a certain particular time? How does the student's work compare with that of the model? Hindi ng other students. And how can the students do better? Okay, these are 4 questions that are important to ask. Ibibigay ko sa inyo itong copy na ito para magkaroon kayo ng kopya. So, feedback is most effective when teachers carefully gauge when feedback is needed to promote learning. So, dapat alam mo kailan nagpo-promote ng learning, kailan nagpapababa ng self-esteem. Ako dyan, guilty ako dyan. Minsan napapababa ko yung self-esteem ng mga estudyante by the kind of feedback or the way feedbacks are given in the class. Kaya binabago ko yon. Okay? So, binabago natin yon. And what level of support they need. So, kung nag-feedback ka, magbibigay ka rin ng support or maghahanap ka ng mga strategies to help the students improve. No? Teachers allow time for and students can independently act on feedback to improve their learning. Feedback takes place as a conversation and teachers check the adequacy of the feedback with the students. So, kung adequate ba yun para ma-provide sa kanya to actually go to the desired outcome. So, where to from here? We can use a thoughtful planning process. As always, we have to plan all of these things. Ang tagal planuhin ito. We have to develop student profiles, no? Multiple intelligences of them, saan ba sila magaling, ano yung kanilang learning styles, and then ano yung kanilang needs, and how are they progressing. And we can create differentiated learning experiences, assessment activities based on their profiles and assessment data. We can give all of these things by, we can actually feedback, no? Feedbacking is important to all of these things. Okay, so matatapos na ako, ang aga ko natapos. Ano? Examples. Pwedeng capstone project. What do I mean by capstone project? A capstone project is a capstone. A capstone project is a project made for 2 to 4 subject area. So sila, may capstone sila doon. Okay? Gusto niyo talaga magandang model. Ang magandang model talaga nito, De La Salita. Okay, ang ginagawa nila, lahat ng performance project nila, sa kanila nga yearly capstone project, yearly. So, isang year ang capstone project nila. Lahat ng mga projects nila, first grading, itong performance, second grading, itong product, third grading. Tapos, ang culmination nila ay sa last. In all subject area, yun na yung gigradean. Hindi iba-iba per subject area. So, ang tawag doon, capstone project. No? Iba-ibang rubric pero isa lang ang ginawa ng bata. Okay? Samples din, returning tests, papers, or comments, comment cards on time. Pwedeng gumamit ng comment cards. Pwede rin gumamit ng post-it notes or for class feedbacking, pwedeng gumamit ng Jamboard, no? Yung ginamit sa inyo ni Sir Carl. Bago lang yan at okay yan sa Google kasi Jamboard is for Google. Okay, pwede ka rin gumamit ng interactive whiteboard for learning focused feedback. So, pwede mo gamitin yan. Well, kanina binanggit ko na yung performance journal o portfolio. Sino nakakaalala dito ng pagsulat ng formal team? Elementary. Hindi ko kayo nakikita pero naalala niyo yung formal team niyo sa English at sa Filipino? Di ba bumibili tayo nung formal team book? Yeah. O kaya, para mas mura, di ba sir? Para mas mura, yung per piece. Tapos hanggat may nakikita pa yung teacher na mali, uulit ka magsulat. Di ba gumaganda sulat natin doon? Pangalawa, na-enhance natin yung ating essay na what did you do last summer? Tama ba yun? Naalala nyo?
Yes.
That's feedbacking. That's an example of feedbacking. Noon pa, that is a very traditional way of using the feedback. Kala lang natin, kasi man pabili ng
Ma'am
Pero sabi
Awi,
naman,
mahalata yung edad.
okay lang yan. Pero sabi naman,
Pero
pwede
time
kayong
yan.
bumili sa labas. Pero siya rin pala nagbigay sa tindahan sa labas. Joke lang. 'Di ba? Pero yung formal team na yon, meron muna yung informal team. Ilang beses ka susulat ng informal team, ang ganda tuloy ng sulat mo, ginagandaan mo. So, bawat gawa mo, babalik sa iyo yan ng teacher mo, may mga red marks yan hanggang sa pagwala ka ng red mark, perfect mo na yung essay na yon. 'Di ba? Mga 10 beses yon. So, piso isa. Anyway. Pero, pwede namang sa papel lang, why not, 'di ba? Pero ang sinasabi ko doon, the essence of doing that activity, the essence of doing that formal team and informal team. Okay? So, ano naman, syempre, example din, yung magkaroon ka sarili mong notebook, no? Teacher's journal. Ilagay mo lahat ng mga feedback na binigay mo sa bata. Isa sa mga problema ng mga nag-thesis writing, yung iba-iba yung sinasabi ng advisor. Nung isang araw, iba yung sinabi niya. Bumalik ako after a week, iba na naman. Diba naranasan nyo rin yan sa thesis writing? So, hindi mo alam ngayon ang gagawin kasi iba-iba yung feedback. Eh di ikaw, maglagay ka ng notebook mo, lagyan mo, itas isulat mo yung, lagyan mo ng picture ng bawat bata. Ito na yung feedback niya. So, madali lang. Bibili ka lang ng isang record book worth 105 sa National Bookstore. Talagang meron pa akong National Bookstore. No? Ilalagay mo doon bawat isang estudyante. Ang tawag doon ay profile notebook. So, one section. Pwede namang sila na rin gumawa dyan. Ando na lahat ng information sa kanila. Ano yung mga strength, ano yung mga ganyan. Ano na yung mga binigay mong feedback. Kaya hindi ko yan winawala sa akin. Hanggang ngayon ginagawa ko yan. Pero online na yung ginagawa ko. Para hindi na ako nahihirapan magsulat. Tsaka mas matagal dahil syempre digital footprint na. Okay, you can have that. Of course, you have to calendar everything, Google Calendar, para doon sa feedbacking mo. Kailan kayo mag-feedback, kailan hindi. And Google Calendar can be shared. So, pwede yan. Pwede yan sa amin, yung Google Calendar namin, pagka yung email namin sa university, malalaman na lahat kung ano yung nilagay mo doon sa calendar. And it's okay, no? So, yung mga estudyante mo, kung pare-pareho naman kayo nasa Google, dahil may G Suite naman kayo, ilagay natin yung calendar natin doon para alam din nila kailan sila dapat matapos. And feedback din yan. Yung dates are feedbacking examples, no? Feedbacks can be given verbally, non-verbally, or in written form. But I prefer the written form. Okay? And then, you can host a one-to-one conference, whether it be online. Ang tawag namin dito, mentoring time or consultation time. Dito kami nagtatagal. Kahit itanong nyo kala Sir Carl, ang tagal. Dapat, nung high school teacher ako, 30 minutes maximum ang aking one-on-one conference. I see to it that I meet my students one by one. Ngayon, mas matagal kasi mas marami kaming issue sa college, so mas marami silang dapat gawin, kaya ganun. O kanina, binanggit natin, graph it. Pwede mong i-graph yung performance ng mga estudyante. Okay? Example is to give us small task or specific tasks. Alright? And then, when you give feedback, you have to use the feedback sandwich, diba? To guide your feedback. Give compliment, and then correct something, and then another compliment. So that's the sandwich feedback. Or you can do other things such as star. Depende na sa'yo kung anong gusto mong feedback mechanism. Okay? Another example, ito, yung Edmodo Schoology na mga libre naman yan, libre yan. These are free apps that you can use. Meron yung feedback mechanism. No, meron na yung pwede mong gamitin na feedback mechanism. Di ko yan ituturo kasi pero merong pwedeng magturo sa inyo ng Edmodo at saka Schoology. Pwede ka rin magbigay ng badge sa feedback. Sino na? Diba si Facebook, ang galing magbigay ng feedback yan, nagbibigay ng badge. Tapos kapag ka masama yung content, pwede ka mag-feedback kay Facebook. Papablock mo yung tao na yon para hindi niya na mabuksan yung Facebook niya. Those are feedback. Okay, gamification, you can do it by games. Electronic publishing, you can do it by vlog or blogging. Audio capture is what we call podcast. Pwede ka rin mag-podcast, yung isi-send mo yung, kahit sa Facebook Messenger, merong podcast eh. Di ba? Pwede ka mag-send ng voice or audio messages. So, pwede yun. No? Hindi mo man siya makita, at least maririnig niya ano pa yung dapat baguhin. Pero isa-isahin mo. Open on page 75. Look at the paragraph number, ganyan. So, dapat very detailed. No? Pwede rin ang image audio. Alam nyo ba na ang inyong, pag may Apple computer, pwede mong ma-record, or any computer, I think, pwede mong ma-record yung ginagawa mo. Yung may voice ka, tapos yung image, i-record yan at isi-save yan sa computer mo. Okay? We can also use computer-assisted assessments such as Turnitin para sa mga essay, kung kinopya ba sa iba o ni-lift, kaya namin nalalaman kapag meron tayong mga nakopya sa module natin dahil meron kaming Turnitin. So, pupula lahat yung kapag kinopya yun sa online or any other published materials. Okay, live polling. Siyempre, alam nyo na yan, like SurveyMonkey or uSurvey. Peer activities, of course, we all know that. And these are the references. So, I hope you learned something new about feedback mechanisms that you can boring. Ano pa yung pwede? You can make your work more interesting by. So, alam naman natin yan know how to make it more positive of a comment rather than letting our students down with the comment that we have. Yung, imbis na negative yung pagkasabi mo ng statement, gawin mo siya laging for positive na pwedeng mag-improve. And that's growth mindset. Diba?
Yeah, very nice. So, kailangan maingat sa kung anong sasabihin. Do, papunta sa parehong direksyon ang gusto mong kung saan mo siya gusto mong dalhin. Pero pagsabi is...
Yes, Sir Sunny. Kasi sa totoo lang, meron tayong mga gawa ng estudyante. Kahit naman college, yung gusto mo itapon. Pero hindi mo yung sasabihin sa feedback mo na katapon-tapon ang iyong gawa. Hindi mo yung pwedeng sabihin, di ba? Ang sarap punitin ng iyong research. Hindi mo yung sasabihin, di ba? Sa sarili mo na lang yun. So, maghanap ka ng exact words na pwedeng makatulong sa kanya. Kasi hindi mo rin alam ang emotional state ng estudyante, lalo na ngayon, diba? And always, when you give feedback, always have that smile. Kahit na sa tingin mo, needs improvement talaga. O sa level mo, 10. Level 10 pa lang to, wala pa to sa level 80. O, level 1 pa lang to, wala to sa level 10. Ay, masaya pa rin yung ano mo. Kasi always give credit to the effort. No? At least may effort yung bata.
Yeah. Ayan. So, yes, Ma'am Noy.
Wala naman silang maitanong. Sabi niya, ito sabi niya, how to maintain a very sharp memory.
Yes.
Okay. So, number 1, how to maintain a very sharp memory. Number 1, read.
Yeah.
Wag tayong maging sa Facebook, yung sa electronics kasi na-deteriorate din tayo. It's a research base. So more on books, read books, no? And I think reading is important Kahit na yung mga nagkakaroon ng dementia, pero kung palabasang mga matatanda, matagal silang magka-dementia, hindi sila magkaka-dementia. Second, merong mga pagkain na dapat na kinakain, no? So, alam niyo ba too much salt can...
Yeah.
So, let's maintain a balanced diet.
Yeah. So
exercise, importante.
So it's what we do and what we eat. Lifestyle din siguro talaga.
Yes, ma'am. Ako alam niyo po, very busy kami, pero every Saturday afternoon is my time for reading. At least 1 book a week. Hindi ko yan natatapos, pero at least I have a goal of reading a book a week. So, nilalagay mo rin yung iyong sariling insight doon sa iyong sariling notebook. May notebook ako for that. For leisure reading. Yan. Pwede rin leisure reading.
Ayan.
Hindi required.
Opo, kasi parang sa totoo lang, Dok, ngayon, kakaunti na lang ang nagbabasa.
Correct.
Nakalimutan na yung mga spelling.
Yeah, yung mga estudyante natin. Kailangan nagbabasa rin sila.
Tama. May tanong na dito, nagsisimula ng magising ang kanilang mga natutulog na utak.
Sige.
Ang aga mo
Sige,
kasi,
ma'am.
Sir, Ma'am Awi, ang aga mo. Ang namin, expectation ko sa'yo, 1 whole day, meron ka pang pa-workshop. Okay, ito ang unang tanong.
Sige.
Okay pa rin po ba ang paggamit ng red pen sa pag-check ng work, such as formal team writing? Kasi I heard na hindi po maganda on the part of the students.
I use purple because that's my favorite. Purple and pink.
May ganon.
Pero, oo, hindi masyado naman yung red eh. Kahit naman red yung sulat mo, as long as what you've written in there ay magandang basahin at natutuwa yung bata doon sa feedback mo. Sa akin, hindi masyadong nag-matter yung color ng ballpen. Pero, syempre, masakit sa mata pag puro red. I remember, eto siguro mariremember nyo rin. Eto ugali ko to nung ako ay high school. Pag nagbigay ng love letter, dahil nga nasanay ako sa formal team, pag may nagbibigay ng love letter sa akin, ine-edit ko muna. So, red pen. Yan. Siguro naranasan nyo rin. Tapos, hindi na yun magliligaw kasi na-correct na yung mga sulat mo. So, one form of discouragement. Kaya yun. Kasi when I was in high school, I was the editor-in-chief ng aming school paper. Pero hindi ako nag-pursue ng English. Any ballpen would do sa akin. Pero kasi ano ba yung nakikita doon sa red? Kasi pag namumula, parang digmaan, duguan ang iyong duguan ang hindi raw siya developmentally appropriate. Pero mas maganda nga yung ngayon nakita niya yan, bukas iba na, 'di ba? Nauubos na yung
Ayan.
Your preference naman.
Probably, Doc, na it's also a way of giving feedback really. From the color itself, it's telling you there's something you need to do.
Yes, no. As long as it's different from the ballpen used by the students. So that they can see it. Yun naman yung importante doon, so that they can see it. Well, ako personally, I minimize using the red pen.
Yeah.
Yes. Oo. Magtanong pa po kayo, sobrang agap. Ngayon pa lang, magpaparuleta na tayo kung sino magigde-demo. So, na po kayo para po
Hindi, siguro para mamaya may gawin kayo by 11 to 12. Pwede kayo nang gumawa ng mga feedback prompts. Para sa inyo, sarili. Ano mga feedback prompts na gagawin? Or pwede rin na gumawa na kayo ng rubric, tapos ano yung mga pwedeng feedback na gawin ninyo later. So, yun yung pwede nyo maging workshop later.
Pwede ba magpa-workshop na tayo ng ganon ngayon, Doc Awi?
Later, pagkatapos ng mga 10:30, para merong konting break.
Kailan? Ito po, may isa pa. Kailan natin nalalaman kung hanggang kailan kang magbibigay nito sa bata? Kung pagkatapos ng several tries, kailangan pa rin bigyan ng feedback ulit ang particular na bata?
Love never fails. Love never quits. Hanggang matapos niya yon, hanggang maging magaling siya, hindi ka titigil. Hanggang sa graduate, the day before graduation, naranasan ko yan the day before graduation, hindi niya pa nasasagutan yung mga kailangan niya sa TLE, binabantayan ko siya talaga, kasi performance-based ang TLE, di ba? Ang hawak ko, lowest section ng 4th year, ng grade 10. So, hindi siya makapasa-pasa, bigayan na ng toga, nag-performance test pa siya ng auto mechanic. Binabantayan na namin siya, sige, wag natin itong sukuan, gabi na, bigayan ng toga yun kinabukasan graduation na. So, hindi sumusuko ang pag-ibig, ma'am. Hindi sumusuko. Hanggang kailan, hindi natin sinusukuan ng bata. Kung ikaw sumuko ka na, paano pa siya? Diba?
Diba? Yan dapat ang realization natin, no? Bilang mga teacher. Na hindi natin dapat sinusukuan ng mga bata.
At saka dapat yung effort ng bata, sumasabay sa effort mo ng feedback. Siyempre, hintayin mo siya Kung pagka-feedback mo ngayon, ginawa niya ba? Pag di niya ginawa, kailangan may certain kind of accountability din, pati parents na ma-ensure na ginawa niya yung feedback na yon. Kasi kung hindi magbabago, di ba? Ayun pa rin yung performance niya. So, dapat may change. Learning has the first characteristic of learning is there's change.
O, yun ang follow-up naman niya dyan.
Mm.
Yung dami po ba ng feedback na ibibigay mo sa bata has an effect to his or her performance?
Opo, syempre. Pero syempre, unti-untiin natin yung feedback natin. No? Wala na yatang ginawang buti itong batang to, needs improvement. Siguro hindi yung dami yung kung paano sinabi. Kung paano sinabi. Kung paano sasabihin or kung paano isusulat.
Oo. Saka, maintindihan ba ng bata yung feedback para mag-improve yung kanyang performance, no?
Yes, and it should be developmentally appropriate. Kung grade 3 ang kausap mo, pang grade 3 yung feedback mo. Huwag kang magbigay ng pang grade 10. Yung mga gagamitin mong salita ay yung maiintindihan niya. Tapos mag-conference kayo kasama ang parents. O ito po at dapat yun ang ginagawa sa parent-teacher conference one-on-one feedbacking to students. No? Kaya yung mga estudyante ko nagugulat, no? Pag nandyan yung parents nila, ito po yung nagagawa ng anak niyo sa klase ko. Siyempre, hindi ko din i-disclose yung mga simpleng kakulitan lang. Pero yung kailangan, yung may guidance record, i-disclose ko yon. Ito po, mabait naman po siya, ganyan-ganyan. Ang laki ng effect nun sa bata, ma'am, thank you. Sinabi mo sa mami ko, mabait ako. Kaya nga magpakabait ka na. Ganon. Ganon yung mga feedback.
Yes, oo. Sir Sunny, may si Ma'am De Leon? Sabi niya.
Ayan. Another question po, okay lang din po ba if I ask my students to use paper first in doing their formal theme writing? Tapos po, if okay na po work niya, tsaka ko pinapasulat sa formal theme notebook.
Opo, kahit ilang papel, ilang ulit. May mga iba, isang beses ka lang mag-feedback, tapos na ay isang beses lang pala. Kasi peg beses marami yon, singular, plural. Plural. Isang beses, maraming beses. Joke po yun. So, yung iba namang bata, 10 beses umuulit. So, nasa sa kanila yan. Tapos, kukompare nila yung sarili nila, bakit siya isang beses lang, tapos na agad siya. Kasi tama yung mga grammar niya, ako rin. So, gagalingan niya na yun. So, magiging goal niya na sa susunod. Isang beses na lang siya.
Parang tayo yan nakikipag-compare tayo dati, di ba? Pag isang beses na kaklase mo, dapat next time, isang beses na lang din ang akin.
Yes. O tapos, pag eto lusot natin, bakit yung pinag-grade yung bata? Hindi, di ba peer feedbacking? Hindi po sila nag-grade, no? Feedbacking po nila yan. Huwag mo silang pagbigyan ng grade kasi hindi magandang tignan. So, feedback lang po yan. So, bakit nila binabasa yung gawa ng iba? Hindi po sila nagbibigay ng grade, hindi po sila dito yung teacher.
Kasi ginagawa sa peer assessment.
Yes.
Pinapasugutan, pinabibigyan ng...
Sa dulo na yon, sa dulo na. Madali na lang kasi mag-grade pag nag-feedback na sila.
Okay. Ito, tanong pa ulit. Ano po ang effective way of feedbacking in our situation today while walang face-to-face?
Ayan. Binanggit ko na yung example kanina. Pwede nyo gamitin yung Facebook, Messenger. Pwede kayong mag-send ng audio message dito. Marunong ba kayo mag-send ng audio message? Ganito. Susubukan ko kay Ma'am Noemi. Ay. Madali lang. I-send mo lang yung, aanohan mo lang yung mic. Ayan. I-hold mo yan, tapos pwede ka na mag-send ng audio message. Ma'am Noemi, you are very good today. So, magkakaroon na yan, makikita na yan dyan. Pag pinindot niya yan, tapos pwede ka na mag-send ng audio message. Ma'am Noemi, you are very good.
Wait.
So, maririnig na yan ng bata sa kanya. Kung ang ginagamit nyo ay Facebook chat, Facebook Messenger, so madali na lang, di ba? Tapos, sa journaling naman, pwede niyang gamitin yung notes. Kung wala siyang vlog.
Yung audio feedback mo, Ma'am Awi.
So pwede yung audio feedback na yon. So, hindi mo man sila nakikita, pero pag narinig nila yung boses mo, nakakapagbigay pa rin ito ng encouragement. Diba? Ma-encourage pa rin sila na, wow, ang importante ka naman sa teacher ko kasi binigyan niya ako ng audio message, 'di ba? So, ayan, ano pa? Yung kanina yung Jamboard, pwede yung gamitin. Kunyari ipapakita, 'di ba? Google Share, nagsi-share. Tapos maglagay ka ng Jamboard. O anong masasabi niyo? What are the strengths, the weaknesses? Pwede na silang maglagay doon on the spot. Kung meron kang synchronous class katulad nito. So, pwedeng gawin yon. Or ang tinatawag natin na multimedia whiteboard. Yung nandito na, may mga apps na gano'n na pwede silang magsulat. Or Google Documents. Yan. Google Docs. Pag yung Google Docs, i-share mo lang sa kanila yung Google Docs, makakapag-comment sila doon. May comment doon sa, syempre, pag nakaharap ka sa computer, nasa right side ng computer mo, pwede sila doon mag-chat. May chat din yung Google Docs. Kahit yung Google presentation, 'di ba? Pwede silang gumawa ng presentation sa Google. Na-edit 'yon, yung PowerPoint nila. Pwede rin sila doon mag-chat. So meron na dong peer evaluation. Meron ka na rin doon. Mag-iiba-iba lang yung kulay ng mga comment. Nakokomentan nyo na agad yung gawa. And that's real time. Kung kailan ginagawa, makikita mo. So makikita mo habang naggagawa ka, makikita mo nagbabago. Nakikita mo, may nag-i-input, may nagsusulat, ganyan. Nakikita mo yung pagbabago. At magkakaroon yun ng assigned color. So, ayan, that's another workshop though. Baka meron sa inyong magaling sa mga apps na ito, Google Docs, Google Sheet, Google Presentation. Pwede nyo yung pag-aralan. At pwede nyo ituro yan sa bata kung paano gagawin. Applicable yan sa mga grade 5 hanggang senior high. Pwede rin pala, i-video mo yung sarili mo. 'Di ba? Sa cellphone mo, tas i-send mo as a chat. Pwede yun. So, mas ano yun. Tas sino-show mo sa kanya, dito sa gawa mo na to, tomorrow, dito sa gawa mo na to, ito yung nakita ko. So, yan, isoli mo sa kanya yung picture. Pwede mo naman picturean yung document o yung ginawa niya, ganito to dapat ginawa, or eto, maganda tong pagkagawa mo rito, ganyan. Paano mo pa itong mapapa-improve? Ano? Yan. Yun yung mga pwede.
Ma'am Noemi, parang meron ditong clarification. Si Ma'am Rosemary Guzman. About graphing the performance where they can get the data. Ano to? Example for grades nila, quarter quizzes, etc. Or ako pa magsabi kung ano i-graph nila.
Yes, pwede mo, ako ang pinapag-graph ko sa kanila. Di ba may number of works ka na pinapagawa? Yung mga tasks, task 1, 2, 3, 4. O task 1, ilagay mo sa 100. Diba? Ilagay mo, grade nila, self-assessment, self-feedback. Tapos, lagyan mo sa ilalim ng insight. Yan. So, kung ano ang gusto mo ipag-graph, remember, ang pinapag-graph natin dito, kung ano yung gusto nating magawa nila, kung anong performance ba, kung sa cognitive ano na yung performance nila sa mga quizzes, written exams, kahit yung formative, pwede yan, no? Hindi siya graded, pero ginrap mo yung performance nila, na pa-perfect na nila yon, ganun, pwede naman. Pwedeng ikaw yung magsabi na anong i-graph, pwede rin na gumawa sila ng sariling lang graph. Kahit yung libro na nabasa nila, ilang books na nabasa mo, ilagay mo sa 5 hanggang first grading, buong first grading. O, isang libro pa lang nababasa, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yun. As insight.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Ano to, Ma'am Rosemary Guzman? Thank you, ma'am. Question po. Is this from YouTube?
Question from YouTube. So, yung question niya yata ay galing from YouTube. Nag-YouTube po kayo? Naka-YouTube po ba tayo?
Hindi naman.
Okay. So, pwede naman. Pwede ka bang mag-YouTube? Huwag mo pong i-public yung feedback mo sa estudyante. The private message po, ay PPM mo po sa kanya yung message. Kung may group po kayo sa class performance, pwede kang mag-feedback sa class, di ba? So, as a group, pwede yon public kasi walang pangalan. Pero kapag ka-individual po, you give it individually.
Yes. andun pa rin yung element of confidentiality mo.
Yes po. Siyempre, ayaw naman natin na ma-expose yung kanilang weakness sa ibang tao. Kasi ang tendency ng mga estudyante natin is to compare themselves. And you know what we want to take out or take off from the present educational system that we have is grading each student in reference to the performance of others. Dapat tayo performance-based, merit-based, katulad ng pag-grade sa atin. Hindi siya dapat na nirarank, di ba? Kaya nga nagkaroon ng movies na Divergent, kasi nirarank yung mga tao. And it's not good. No? Hindi yan maganda yung epekto niyan sa mga tao. Hindi mo gustong i-compare ka sa ibang tao. So, you always have to measure your performance from your last performance, di ba? So, ganun.